keep your values, keep your whys. Don't go in with all of that. Just relax, get to know the person, let the person get to know you, and you'll determine whether you see eye to eye on those issues and whether or not that's a friendship that can develop into something more later. As you know, it is very challenging in the dating world, whether you're a male or female in this modern day dating cycle we're in. If you're strong and independent, you find yourself challenged with different match possibilities. Sometimes it's you, sometimes it's the pool you're dating in. It's the pond that you've chosen. But we're here tonight to address some of those modern day dating issues, talk about identifying when the problem is you, or if it's something that you're needing or area you're needing to grow in. So first up, question for tonight is, how do you think societal expectations about gender roles influence the dynamics between strong, independent women or men and their potential partners? Anyone can answer.
How do you think that
No one wants to take a stab at it?
Loaded.
I always got an opinion.
Come on, let's
But
hear it. Go ahead, just quick to get it started.
So gender roles today's gender roles are conscrewed. And a lot of it is because, hey, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And he says, man and woman were made. And, woman was taken out of the rib of Adam. So inside of every man, there's a woman. Inside of every woman, there's a man. But you have to look at your gender and what God made you, whether man or woman, and you take it from there. So today, because of society, gender roles have been mixed and they have been challenged because you have a lot of strong women and you have a lot of strong men. The men striving, not trying, we're striving to keep our role and where we are in the family. And the women are striving to keep the family together financially, spiritually, and mentally. So the man supposed to be doing the same thing, but they're getting stuck mostly in the physical world and not the spiritual world, and not even looking at the spiritual world from a sense. And so you get everybody focusing on the physical and not the spiritual. And the physical is financially, socially, and all of those. And so now you got your roles mixed because both should be playing in the financial and the social role. Whereas, the spiritual roles is where everything truly matters, but a lot of them are not taking that into the right, putting it in the right perspective. So there is a great struggle today, just because everybody, men believe that they should be the breadwinner. We talked the last time I was on the thing about what breadwinner really means. And women believe that the man should be strong, but they're looking for physically strong or socially strong. But nobody's really looking at where it truly is, because in order to be both of those, physically, mentally, or socially, got to be spiritually. And I'm going to leave it there and stop. That's why I'm stopping for now.
It's loaded. Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. And anybody can share what one of their experiences where strength or their independence, mainly talking to the ladies, intimidated or attracted or intimidated their potential partners, or even when they were just dating someone, just having that independent. I think of a time.
I'll go since no one's jumping out there. I think the juxtaposition is, if you are a modern day dater with traditional values, you're running into certain issues. For example, if you are very dedicated faith-wise and you believe in waiting into marriage and different things like that, you're going to find yourself in a very perplexing situation because your small needle in a haystack just got smaller. So it's a case by case. And so what I would say to that is approach that very gingerly by allowing the relationship or the friendship to develop. And then as you go through that process with time, you identify the right time to have that conversation, the right time to talk about what your values are. Because if you go hot and heavy, you're going to, might get nixed. You might nix a good partner because you might seem too religious or too rigid in your belief. so that it dissuades that member, because now they're thinking, my experience with someone that has this type of faith or this type of belief, it's just been something so negative and so challenging, and I just don't really feel like going through all those things. So I would just say again, keep your values, keep your whys, but don't go in with all of that. Just relax, get to know the person, let the person get to know you, and you'll determine whether you see eye to eye on those issues, and whether or not that's a friendship that can develop into something more later.
Okay, beautiful though.
Ask me something, Erica. Just ask me. They don't have to, no one has to say anything. Just ask me. Just ask me something.
Sure.
Ask the Brill and let's go. Let's go.
Ready to get out the gate. Okay, so from a male perspective, what are your thoughts, Jabril, on dating a woman who is highly successful and independent? And did you find it intimidating or appealing, and why, when you were dating?
All right, when I was dating. Thanks.
Yes, when you were dating. Well, you still got to date your wife, obviously. So
True. Did I find that intimidating?
dating a single successful woman, did you say I find it challenging? Did you find it appealing?
Challenging and appealing. I mean, it's nice. I mean, that person, you can elevate each other, compliment each other. So I think it's a great thing. I mean, people that you feel that you have something over, you're more in a control position. You don't really respect them as much. In my case, and I can speak for a lot of men. So it's not really it's the challenge that you need. And it's not going to help you grow, and you're not going to help that person grow. If anything, you're going to make them feel diminished with their worth. And I mean, it's just not a good place for anyone to be. So I do think that people should work with people on a level that they're on and where they aspire to be with like mind. And then definitely have a friendship first. The friendship helps, because when you have the friendship, you have the communication. And with the communication, even if things are going wrong or not the way you want on that particular day, you can work or feed off of a toolbox of forgiveness, the forgiveness toolbox, because there's certain things that you know that person likes or even loves, and you can use that as a love language, understanding their love language, and warm things back and get the connection. Right. So definitely, you want somebody that you're on that similar level with. I think that's the best way. Anything else? I feel you're just playing around.
I can concur with that. So for the ladies, if anybody wants to answer, what challenges have you faced or had faced if you're married or with someone now, when it comes to balancing your strength and independence with trying to date someone? And have you had any pushback regarding that for potential partners, it is?
This is Coach Rosie. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Coach.
Can you guys? Hey, I think from a marriage standpoint, certainly trying to balance your own independence when you're married is a little bit difficult, right? Because the two now have become one. And so when you're single, I think it's, much easier to claim your independence. But when you've sort of made a vow to someone through thick and thin and all that good stuff, it's a little bit more difficult to say, well, I'm going to do things like this, right? So there has to be much more of a conversation around the things that you desire to do. And it's coming from, I guess, the core of family, right? So you have to look at the family as a whole, considering everyone else's, or your spouse, I should say. But, for me, it's having children, right? So you got to consider a whole lot more when you're talking about your independence versus having independence, but yet not being independent. So it's sort of like, two-edged sword in a way where, you have to have those conversations. I want to do this. I desire to do this. Hopefully you have a partner who understands you, who communicates well, who understands your dreams and visions and all of that stuff. Because if not, I think it causes a lot of confusion. And certainly where confusion is, God is not. And so for me, working out all of those things that I desire to do, and then having a spouse, having to talk to him about those things. I mean, there are times that, man, I wish, I say to myself, and I'm saying out loud now, that, it's hard to be married, right? Like you got to go through all of these channels to finally come to an agreement to spend more money, to spend more time away from home, to go to events, to travel, to do all of these things. So when you have that other person saying, oh no, we can't do that now. And you're like, but we got to do this now. Like, if I don't do it now, then when do we do it? Right. We've already waited, So it becomes very, very difficult. And sometimes I think like, man, it would have been easier if I was, single, because I only had to think about me. But that's not the way marriage works, of course. And so I have to kind of ring my thoughts back in, because when those tough conversations come, remembering that no matter who makes the most money, that doesn't matter. It's just money for the family, right? So it's not, sometimes you might think about that, like, well, I'm the one making all the money, or, those kind of thoughts may come. But you have to ring that in, and it's all for the good of the family as a whole. And I think sometimes that independence forces you to sometimes make decisions that your spouse may not, or your partner may not agree with, right? But you think that it's for the good, because not everyone is going to also see your vision and know what your dream is. And so at some point you have to make a decision sometimes that, well, you know what, I'm going to override what my husband is saying this time, but Lord, please help us to, get back on track after this, right? And also let it work, right? Like, Lord, please let it work, because if it doesn't work, then that causes a lot more conflict within a relationship. So, but it's one of those things. It's not really, life is not balanced. I don't care how much we try to balance it. Life is just not balanced. Relationships are not necessarily balanced. Somebody is going to have to sort of submit or, concede in some way so that there's peace. But that doesn't mean that there was a balance there. It just means that, one of us decided that we were going to give in some way that time just for that moment. But I think even in the imbalance, we can find still a really good relationship. So
thanks for sharing that. It made me think about something that you just said, Coach Rosie. So I kind of I know some have been married before previous. And I know it's some very independent women on the call. When you said something, Coach Rosie, about it doesn't matter who makes the most money, I'm assuming that you're also saying that the roles could be reversed, and the woman could be the quote unquote breadwinner. When you know that you make the most, because it was easy when you said that, and I've heard that before with a lot of women, they say that, but when the rubber hits the road and you really want something, and you feel like it's different between having that bond and being that boss, how do you feel? I mean, when you know that you really don't need the person's approval, and that you're right. You're right. This is your dream. This is what you're supposed to have. How humbling or how difficult is it to just say, you know what, this is my husband. And there's a reason why, and you may think, and it could even be on ego, you may even think, wow, we're here because of me. I mean, I don't know if that's happening, but I think that when someone makes more, that may be the part of the marriage that you have, but is it challenging for you, or do you know people who it's challenging for when the woman does make more money?
I think, I don't look at it like, I'm leveling up, I'm the boss kind of a thing, making more. That, me personally. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people who do, and my decisions wouldn't be made based. Give me 1 second, please.
Okay, sure.
My decision wouldn't be made based on who makes the most, right? It wouldn't be that. It'll be more of what I believe God is leading me towards, right? And hoping that person would see that, right? And know that about me, and want us to be in alignment, right? However, I know that's not always the case, right? Sometimes, you could still be looking at the numbers as far as the household is concerned, and the numbers are not aligning. But how many of us know that if you're moving in the Spirit of God, many times things are not going to align, right? It's just not. And so in order for God to work a miracle, there needs to be something that's out of whack, right? Like, or it's not a miracle. If I can do it on my own, then it doesn't become a miracle. And so no, I don't think that, or at least for me, again, I don't look at it as, the one who, right, or because of me. It has to be based on what we as a whole are doing, and not necessarily what I'm doing. Right. Again, I'm doing it hopefully for us and with us, not necessarily as this boss. I'm the boss. I'm making, so that wouldn't be a spirit of God anyway. If
right.
if anyone's like that, that wouldn't be a spirit of God.
All right. And that leads me to a point that some women are single because of that mindset. It's all about that. And you can't take a job or a title to bed with you, or go on trips, or have memories with those accolades. So it can be a blessing.
Right.
And so a lot of women lead with that. On the flip side, men lead with that. Men throw their checkbook out, or whatever they have, and instead of you getting to know the person. I think last week's episode we were talking about getting to know the person. What movies do they like? What food do they like? What food do they not like? Where do they like to go? What are some of the things on the bucket list? And what are things that they would do if you didn't even have any money, just to have some fun? And I think that when you spend more time with that, the substance, again, that's more of the friendship. It's not surface anymore. And to know that someone may be afraid of spiders, but just knowing the things that they have, all their biggest fears, just think that seals. And that's the difference when people meet new people and you are in a relationship, that there's certain codes or certain things about that person that no one else knows except for both of you. So I think that that's something that people don't really address or think about, and that's building the foundation, the person that you're in a relationship with, which should be your friend, should definitely be your friend.
I asked someone what I thought was a very simple question, has nothing necessarily to do, but you just talked about, things, getting to know people, right? And that's in any environment. I know we're talking more about, maybe the spouse sort of relationships, but think about relationships, just a friendly networking sort of level. And I asked someone, I said, this question may seem a little strange to you because it's probably never asked, right?
Right.
But I asked that person, what does your mom think of you?
Ooh. Was this a male? Did you ask a male this?
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
And they lifted their head to the sky and went, oh, right? Because typically people are at a business function and they're asking more, business related questions. What do you do for a living?
Right.
And so he said to me, he said, wow, I never really thought about it before. And I said, well, I want you to take a moment and just tell me what you think your mom thinks of you. And he said, well, she always just says like, just make sure you do good. And I said, so you think that she thinks you're doing good? And he said, well, and he really didn't know what his mom really thought about it.
Wow.
And that's a person who's probably pretty close, right? More than likely, most of us are close to our moms.
Yes.
And he said, I really don't know. And I said, it's probably something you should find out. And why? Because if we don't know how the closest people feel about us, what does it matter what other people feel? Because we're always thinking about what other people think about us, how they feel about us, all of these things, right? But the closest people to us, if I can't tell you what I think, my mom or my dad especially would think about me, then I have not been successful in the most important relationships, the very first relationships I've ever had. Absolutely. And so how do you become successful in other relationships, right? How do you become successful? Because we talk about a lot of surface things, right? Like I could find out any point in time when we go to eat, like if I ask you to go out to dinner with me, hey, what do you like? What would you like to eat, right? And you go, oh, I want steak. Oh, you like steak? Yeah, I like steak. I'm not a fan of steak, but let's go to a restaurant that has seafood too, right? Because I love seafood. So those are kind of the surface things. But if I asked you, if we, and I know I can almost tell you how your mom feels about you, Jabril, only just by her being on the last show. But if I wanted a truthful answer though, I'll ask you, right? How
Right.
does your mom feel about you? And I can tell you have the utmost respect for her, but how does she feel about you, right? So those are just deeper questions sometimes that I think we should be more concerned about asking. Um, Certainly we'll get to know all of the other things, but it's just really important, I think, to get to know people on a deeper level, because I think those are the things that we find out later about people that we don't like, the deeper things,
The deeper
right?
stuff.
After we're already in a relationship. And now we're finding out that like your mom doesn't, you don't even think your own mama likes you. And if your mom don't like you, what's wrong? Something's right. Something's not right. So before we get into those marriages or those deep, relationships with folks, just asking some other questions would probably help a lot.
That's a good question. I think another one, thanks, Coach Rosie, is for women, what's your relationship with your father? I mean, that is a hidden gem in some of those relationships, and I think we've talked about in other episodes, that shapes certain women with how they perceive men or respect or not respect men, based on their relationship or what they've experienced, or the trauma or the drama they experienced in their own home growing up, or just a father who was absent, or a stepfather. I mean, there's certain things that I've seen and had to experience that with a woman because of something that the father didn't do or hurt the person. So they still have unforgiveness to take it out on others. So it's on some both. So the parenting is very, very crucial in that support, because it teaches you. My mother's taught me how to give, forgive. She always says, treat people the way you want to be treated. And I mean, those are things that just stick with me forever. I mean, I can hear her voice saying that even. So sometimes I don't have to call her every time something happens. I already know what she's going to say. And so if I don't want to listen at that point, I may do something contrary to that, but eventually I'll come back and do what I'm supposed to really do. Then I'll call her.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
It's like a quiet storm today. I know that people are just listening, but I mean, it's for everyone. I mean, I see Gerda with this great smile just gleaming. Is there anything that you have to say? Because I think this is your first time being on, and I know you've been trying to get on. So I'm happy that you were able to make it. But the topic is about slippery slope. It's like in relationships and strong women.
I'm excited to be here. Hey, Erica. Hey, Coach Rosie. Thanks.
Hi.
I was like, when I was logging the topic and it said slippery slope of love, I said, oh, okay. Slippery slope of love. So I kind of caught the latter part. So I don't really know. Like you said, it's about like the relationships. And I know you said like the women or independent women. So if y'all can just give me like some more context on, is it more so like independent women saying like, I don't need no man, and they kind of operate in a different. So let me take it back. Kind of what Coach Rosie was talking about. She mentioned something where it had like that biblical foundation, right? So I think I shared this with you before, Jabril, like I feel like we as people, we use the Bible as our blueprint when it comes to finance, right? We use the Bible when it comes to the blueprint on how to treat people, how to care for the homeless, the elderly, right? But a lot of time, or you hear all the women always say, I want a Boaz, or, things like that. But we never really go back to the word to see what does the word say for us as women of God. And the blueprint is also in there. So even though the way that I grew up, my parents are still married. They've been married for like 40 plus years. So all I have seen is my mother and my father moving in lockstep, and there never being a dispute or debate about submission. And I think now submission has like that negative connotation. I think it has that negative connotation where women respond to it negatively when they hear it. And some men, they use it. Some women respond to it negatively, and some men use it in a negative connotation. Like, are you willing to submit? Like it's something as like, you're my master and I'm your slave, right? Instead of understanding where you as the man is coming with the mission and I as the woman is coming under that mission, right? So even as like strong women, I think we still need to, this day and age, I think if everybody just goes back to the basics, which is the blueprint, which is what the word says, and we start to operate, we could still be strong women, but we still like operate in our femininity and our softness. And I know they have this thing now called, what is it, soft life? Is that what it is, Erica? I don't know. Is it like hashtag soft life? I don't know. But I hear it and I'm like, it shouldn't even be a trend. It shouldn't even be a hashtag. That's already embedded in our DNA. It doesn't matter how successful you are or how many degrees you have or anything like that, because at the end of the day, if you have a husband, you come home, you are not the boss. He is the head of the household. It is a proper order of things. And again, I'm using the word as, my blueprint. It's the father, then it is the husband who is the head, and then the woman, and then the children, right? And the wife, and then the children. So, I mean, I agree with what you all were saying, right? It's there. The blueprint is there, and we just need to go back to the basics and follow that. Like if you look at the Bible, I don't want to be no Bible thumper, but if you go to like Esther, right? And I'm obsessed with like Esther, Ruth, the women in the Bible, period. But Esther, King Xerxes was married to Vashti, and I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit. And he, summoned Vashti, was like, hey, Vashti, I want to see my wife, can somebody go call my wife? Because she come over and she's kind of like, oh, no, you're not about to tell me when to come to you. I come when I want to come, right? And so what happened? I had to give Vashti the boot. But then you have Esther who comes in and she wins his favor out of all of the women that he had, right? And she knew that she had to save her people, but she was able to go just sitting in her femininity and thriving in it. She was able to go in the courtyard in front of like his chambers where the doors was open and did nothing but stand there, knowing that he would be able to extend his scepter and invite her to walk over to him. And she did nothing but operate in who she was as a woman, and her softness and her gracefulness, right? And her inspiration and her femininity. And I think that those are the things as women, it don't matter what degrees you have, how successful you are, if you're the breadwinner in the house, if you are with that man, you are trusting that man to lead you, because it's not just expecting him to lead you financially. He has to be able to lead you spiritually, mentally, emotionally. He is the pillar of the house. So I don't care if you make 100,000 and he made 40,000. If you with him, you married him, then you are trusting him to lead you. So all of that goes out the window. So I know it.
It sounds easy I hear it, but I know that it's probably not the most popular thing that you're saying. I mean, because I see women all the time. I mean, especially in these areas in the US, it's totally different. And we live in a society that relationships are genetically modified, the same with our food. It's processed. It's a different process. And we pick and choose when we want to be vegetarian, when we want to be vegan. It's just a mood thing. So when you operate with the way we do, with the way we eat, the way we think, everything is trendy. If this is popular today, this is what we're doing. So then you do have this. I've seen this mentality of women just being the boss. So it's people like that. But you see that that's not going to work. It's not going to last. Our food before it was processed or genetically modified, when we're eating grapes and watermelons and things with no seed, that's not real food. It tastes good, but it's not. It has no substance. And it won't work. And it's same with relationships. Things taste good, look good, smell good, feel good, but it won't work. Like you said, the blueprint of how to do things is already in the Bible. We just got to follow it instead of modifying things based on how we feel or what we want to do for instant gratification. So
I'm there 100% because I don't care how many degrees I got. I need a man. I will never be one to say, I don't need no man. Yeah, I do. Okay. I absolutely do. Right. But
he needs you too.
Yeah.
It's not
exactly.
Because again, remember, a lot of men hide behind their accomplishments. They just get on these jets and travel and they show all of this stuff that they're doing. But if you really get to know them, and as Coach Rosie said, how does your mother feel about you? And more than likely, they're not even a mother. They probably not listening to their mother. Or they could be mad at their mother and doing other things to not face that pain.
Yeah, that's true. What you said, of love.
I
Is
love
that
it.
you like it? You like it? That's what
I
you.
love it. I love everything that she
I've
said.
been seeing you shaking your head up and down like a bobblehead. So what's up?
I love it. I love it.
Get
I
us
love it.
up in there and say something.
It reminded me two things, babe. I was telling Jabril about this. So one day he asked me, he says,
Wait.
why do
Hey,
women say,
I don't think they. So Babe is her friend. This is, and you may,
Okay.
because everybody know Abe.
babe is my mature friend, a very accomplished man. So what I find in that friendship, romantic relationship exploration is that when you're with a real leader that can check off a lot of boxes for you, your submission portion of yourself will naturally come out. It's not even a thought. It just oozes on out. I remember we were having a conversation. He says, why do women say they want a man to lead, but always have their hand on the steering wheel? And so, like Gerda, it's like, need a man. I need a man because I want a man. So it just has to be the right man. And when I think about what Coach Rosie said and what Jabril is saying with the relationship with the man and his mother, those have been the better relationship candidates for me. As long as it's not a toxic situation, obviously, but a man that has a really good relationship with his mom or his mom.
Erica Freeze, or is that me?
No, it's South Africa. She's in South Africa.
Oh, nice.
Getting her man.
Wow. Okay.
She went international. No, I'm just kidding. She's on a vacation, but you never know.
Going to, and I know Jabril, you Nigerian. I was gonna say she went to get the bride. He went to pay the bride price.
All right, that's right. I hear you. Look, she's all choked up. Look at her.
Yeah, you might go ahead and get that bride price, Erica.
Right, because I mean, sometimes you go to Africa and you'll never come back, and it's not
right.
You might not come back, but just the scent. I think that she fell off, and we knew that might happen, but you never know. I mean, people could be watching these. Like when you said, "I need a man," these are recorded. So remember what you say and be careful what you ask for, because somebody see this episode, they leave this episode 6 and they say, "Come on, call and go it up." And it can happen. It's amazing how that can happen.
Well, not right now, though, Jabril. Tell them give me about 6 months because I'm about my father's business right now. Okay. I am focused. I am about my father's business, Coach Rosie. Just like Jesus.
So let me just say this to you. When you say you're about your father's business, and you said 6 months. Now that's, I hate to say it, and you're ready to receive it as a man, as somebody, that's genetically modified.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm just teasing.
Oh,
I'm just teasing.
Like 6 months, then they're gonna look at this. Then they're gonna push it back 6 days.
No. I'm about my father's business, but just like I've shared with other people, because I have had different people try to like hook me up and stuff like that, right? But just like what Erica said, it has to be the right person, right? And so even when you meet someone, it's not like where that's the desperation where some women do have, oh, I just need a man and now I just want a man, and they just kind of jump in the first thing or that's offered to them or that's interested. But right now, yes, I am about my father's business. But if my father were to interrupt and say, this is what I have for you now, I will not fight that at all.
Amen.
I won't fight it because, again, there is a purpose for everything. And so he is always right on time. So when that time comes, now I'm going to just ask him, hey, let me just get past this first cycle 1 that we're on right now. And then talk to me. But I am open to it. So
you are. You always be open and available. Always be open and available. It's never, because these things never come exactly when you want them. When God is, it's never, because you're moving, we're constantly moving, and we can miss the blessing.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Oh, Erica's back.
She's back. Erica, I told them that you're in South Africa and you might get your Boaz in South Africa.
Maybe.
Not coming back.
You might not come back.
I'm coming back.
But no.
But I'm just want to jump in here, and that's as we looked at when I first talked, and I love what is said, because the spiritual, so many times we do get on the surface, and many times we don't get the family dynamics going on within a relationship. And it's not just with the mother, it's with the family, because the mother some people I'm a pastor, and I've come across people that've got terrible relationship with their parents because their parents are doing the wrong thing and they're trying to get away from it. They came up in the ghetto, they came up in the suburbs. Mother had 4 or 5 different boyfriends. Daddy had all kind of women coming in and out the house. They're trying to, and on both the male and the female side, it's good to understand those dynamics as you're going into a relationship. But the one thing that a brother told me early in my ministry, he told me, in order to get to the heart, you got to go through the head. You got to understand what the head is talking about in order for them to reveal their heart. Because everybody wears 2 masks, the mask that you see and the mask that they don't want you to see. And so as they are looking at the mask that you want them to see, there's a whole lot of hurt behind there, and everybody has it. Because we are born in sin, wrapped in iniquity. We all have that hurt. What we do with it, how deep we bury it, how far we bury it, becomes the concern and the question. Because there are some things about my wife. I've been married 29 years. I just found 20 years ago that she got raped. 10 years ago, she got raped. So how do you think that worked in our marriage for the first 20 years? That affected our marriage. And I'm sitting there like, what in the world going on here? Because, I'm trying to do one thing. And she's like, time out. So, we look past a lot of things in a marriage because we all said, well, that's something. So it goes back, we say that's something I can fix, or that's something I can deal with. How you get water, how you get a half a glass of water to make a full glass of water? You keep dropping stones in it. You keep dropping stones in it, the capacity, so the water's going to overflow sooner or later. And that's what happens inside a relationship. They keep dropping these little stones and these little stones and these little stones. And the next thing you know, you got a full glass of water and you're overflowing something that seems so minute, something that seems so insignificant. Now it blows the whole relationship up because it's something that you said, well, I can deal with that later, instead of dealing with it now. Instead of allowing, and I love what you said, allowing God, and that's the spiritual part of the relationship that we don't work on first. If you're not spiritually yoked, if you're not walking to, you going to a club, finding a man, and you sitting in church on Sunday morning, how you think they're going to work? And vice versa. You go to church on a Sunday morning, and you see the first man, he's looking fine and all that, and you really don't understand the spiritual picture, then you still are messing up because are you going to find a woman? Because, it's like me. I'm sitting in there, I'm sitting in church, and I talk about me. I'm sitting in church, just got into town. I'm a military guy, just got into town. I walked into the housing office. And I said, hey, I'm looking for a church on Sunday. Where can I go? And the lady said, hey, I'm going to send you to this church. She sent me to this church. I walked out the door. The Spirit said, nope, wrong church. I walked back in. I said, what church do you go to? She looked at me and said, I don't. She said, well, I don't know if you can get to the church. And I'm like, well, that don't matter. My Spirit says, what church do you go to? She said, well, I go to Mount Zion. And so I went to Mount Zion. I drove up, I had this beat up car. I pulled upside this nice white Plymouth Laser. I know I'm dating myself. They don't even make Plymouth Lasers no more. I walk in the church, I'm bold, brother, little young 25-year-old. I'm bold. I'm going to sit on the first row, right? Like, I own this joint. I sit on the first row. This lady gets up. She got on these tall heels, this dress down to her knee, and she's directing the youth choir. I'm like, man, that's a fine woman now. And I'm like, okay, I ain't dealing with her because I know she's stuck up. I'm not messing with her. So I walk, I just make that I'm sitting in church now. I make that recognition and I walk away. I'm like, I ain't dealing with her. I walk outside. Guess who on the white Laser I'm sitting beside? She did. I'm looking for a house. She was a real estate agent. She sold me my house. And we even got to the point, she was like, I don't like this house. I said, it ain't for you anyway. I'm like, I'm buying this for me. And she's like, this house ain't right. I said, look, you ain't got to live in it. It's my house. I'm doing it. You can I deal with what I want to do. And she said, well, you do what you want to do, brother. And she sold me the house and we thought that was it. A year later, she was living in it because we were married.
Yeah.
And so, but now, what did I do after I bought that house? Gutted it out. I started fixing it up, putting in some nice stuff, tearing everything, and made sure it was looking good because even though I wasn't looking for her, I was looking for somebody with her taste and with her class and with everything that she brought to the table. I like what she brought to the table. It was just some things that I said I wasn't dealing with that she had. I didn't want to deal with the whole package. But God said otherwise. 29 years later, we still sitting up here loving each other. You know, I'm running across the country. I'm driving 1,000 miles one way, taking care of my parents, you know, hardly ever at home. And she's holding down the fort. And every time I walk in the door, bruised, beat up, toe down, you know, flustered, busted, she picks me up, bandages me up, kicks me back out the door and says, go get him, Tiger. And that's what we need to look at as we're looking for that spiritual yokeness. You know, when I'm in church, she's in church. We sit there today. I'm outside working because I'm over one ministry. I'm outside working my ministry. She says, you come and sit with me today? I said, baby, you know I am. And I went in there and sit down with my wife today. And that's the challenge that we have to have, because we have to understand our spiritual place. And, you know, many people look at Proverbs 31 and they talk about that Proverbs 31 woman. And I always tell them, you need to look at the beginning of the story, because they talk about the woman, how well she was and how she walked through the city and she made her money. She made the money. It didn't say he made the money. It said she made the money. Sold her where? She walked through the community. What was the man doing? Sitting at the gate. He was making sure that the spiritual atmosphere that she walked in, she was protected. And so we have to, it goes back to what she says. It's not about the money. It's about where that spiritual covering is, that head of household, the head of your spiritual household. We have to make sure that as men, that we provide that for our spouses. And then, I mean, for the women, even for the women that we are dating, I had to show my wife, because we were both in the church. She was working in the church. I had to show her that I could provide a spiritual covering for her so that she can walk in and rest in. Now, don't get me wrong. It wasn't all there. She married me because of my potential. I didn't have it all together, but I married her because of her what? Potential. Her potential to make me a better man. She married me because her potential to make me a better. I married her because of her potential to make me a better man. She married me because I can make her a better woman, to give her the things that she needed. And that doesn't have to be financial. That can be spiritual. That can be mental and physical. But we have to make sure that we are meeting each other where we are, and it's not trying to build somebody where we want them to be, but seeing the potential. Now, if I go out there and I'm looking for a woman, she ain't got nothing going on, she has no drive, she has nothing going on for herself, and then I'm sitting up here going to be a multimillionaire, I got all these dreams and aspirations, then all she want to do is hang around and spend money and all of that. Is that the right person I need to be looking for if I'm trying to build? No. But many times we settle. And just like Eric and I have these conversations a lot, you know, don't sell your expectation. It's one thing to build. And we always want to talk about, you know, I set my expectation high. Yeah, but what does that mean? What does that mean? What is an expectation too high? Only you can tell that. But yeah, you're saying you want somebody already set. Then what are you going to build on? How are you going to support that person? How can you help somebody if they already got everything going on? But, you know, when we look at, and I'll go back to my sister when she talked about Boaz had it going on. He had everything he needed. He had all his money. He had his social status. He had everything he needed. He had a good heart. But the one thing he didn't have was the person to make him whole, the person to make him complete. We need to look for, how do we fit into the puzzle of a person? How do we spiritually fit in? Because if you spiritually fit in, everything else going to work out. Because guess who's in it? God is in it.
Right.
Because, and I heard, and one, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna shut up. I heard my sister say that, you know, God can't create a miracle if things are all dressed right dressed. Things being dressed right dressed is a miracle. Things being balanced, even though they're unbalanced, is a miracle. Because a family, a husband and a wife today in today's society is a miracle. Because God has to be in the picture for it to work. Because they have to have the faith to stand in there. And even though it's a 10, it's a 100, 0, -5 balance, they are still saying we're equal, we're complete. And that's where a miracle is. Because they're looking beyond themselves and seeing what God is in the picture and has placed them there. And they're saying, I am standing on the faith and the belief that God put me in this marriage. And I'm going to tell you, and I think Jarrell can attest to that. There are some days he wanted to sprint the other way, and then he want to look back, He said, bump everything. I don't want nothing. I'm done. But then he looks and he said, wow, that's what God gave me. And I can guarantee you, she said the same thing. My wife will tell you quick, God gave me this joker. I don't know why I'm here half the time, but I'm glad I am, because I enjoy the journey that God has blessed us with. I'm done.
Amen. It's a great way to conclude. We appreciate that, Thomas, and got a little word in there and some real perspective. But you threw that in there and you said that I like to run. I've never felt like that. I'm always excited about everything that happens. No, you're right. It can happen almost weekly where you think about putting on your tennis shoes and running. But I mean, if you run and where you're going, and it could lead you somewhere else. And if that's the mindset every time something doesn't go right or doesn't feel right, and you don't allow God to create, as Coach Rosie said, that miracle, then you're messing with the process again. You're genetically modifying the process, which is
it. And it ain't gonna never be right.
You can't outthink God out. I mean, I was on an airplane earlier, and no matter what, how much I can think, it just amazes me how you can just be on an airplane, fall asleep, and I may want to do a whole bunch of things. And next thing I know, it's up, and then it just lands. That's all God, just putting that in the right people to do that. Because I can't imagine putting that together. But that was there before we were even born. All of us, they were flying airplanes before that. So I guess I'm making a point that God, the things that we see, he gives us this imagination within an individual and makes it change the world. So you've changed the world within your own relationships, but it's not based on everything that you can see. Because if it were like that, then some of us would run. So again, potential and faith and communication is the recipe for the success. Now, next week, we got episode 7. And you don't want to miss this, because this is kind of a spinoff from a couple of weeks ago about what is a good woman. But this one is, what is a good man from a woman's perspective? Gert, I definitely want to hear what you'll have to say about that. And Coach Rosie, you've been seasoned in marriage and relationships and navigating and hearing others and always encouraging others. I mean, the scriptures, we're going to focus on the key traits that define a good man, or I guess from a woman's perspective. And we're talking about integrity, empathy, respect, and ambition. I know that for us, a lot of women will not deal with a man who doesn't have any ambition. So again, no potential, no plan. At least he has a plan. It doesn't mean it has to already manifest. That's the part where you as a helpmate can help that vision and support it. But you have to at least have a schedule, a plan, an understanding. And asking women, how do these attributes align with what a successful, independent woman seeks in a partner? So it kind of spin off of what you already had mentioned, Gerda. So I'll be happy to hear that. But this is next week, and this is our time. This is it. I mean, I appreciate everybody. And Erica, for staying up late. You can get some rest and refresh, and that's where we are next week. What is a good man from a woman's perspective?
This was good.
Can't
Thank
wait
you
to talk
so
about
much.
it.
So think about that. That's your homework, Gerda. You think about it. But I mean, it's again, it's going to be facts and some blueprint, but your opinion and your own experiences is open discussion. Yes, Coach Rosie.
No, I was going to say thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all of your added value. Thank you for my new friend I just met today, Latoya, at the airport. Was able to make it. Thank you. Yo, that's New York. She represents. She's amazing. So you guys will get to see her soon. And she'll be coming to our class, Mindset to Monetization. Thank you so much for having this baby and let me be a part of it. Purpose and powerful. Here to stay for a long time. We appreciate you. Everyone have a wonderful weekend and stay safe.
Thank you
You
so
as
much.
well. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Night.
Good night. Thank you.